I'm Shane Nyland, and my co host is Blake Musser. And these stories you're about to hear are from Weapons Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, 1st Marine Division, about the events surrounding and directly from the mouths of the people who were in Ramadi 2004. This is part 2 of our interview with Lew Layton of Rainmaker Platoon.
But, and it's crazy. And I like something I pick in your guys' brain. Like, did anybody hit IEDs before we did?
Yes. So there's a few.
You mean in country? Like before our unit?
Yeah. Well, just in total, right? Like, because we were in there with half doors. We weren't worried about IEDs.
Right. So it's interesting you say that. I have two perspectives for that. Number one, I'll give you just the historical portion. Even the guys that were from 3-5 that had come over sort of as our early, not even combat replacements, but people like Lashard, McCabe, like those guys who had seen the invasion action, they said as the invasion sort of dwindled down and they were doing some routine patrols, they were seeing rudimentary IEDs, and a lot of them were in dead animals or in simple stuff, soda cans, like little stuff, which was kind of where our early IED training focused on when we got it. I don't know if you were part of that brief that was at San Mateo, but we all sat in like a big room and they showed us a slide deck of 7 slides, and it was like a Pepsi can stuff with nails and a little bit of copy. Like, total bullshit. But maybe that was what they were seeing at the time.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to our time frame, just before us getting there, they were definitely seeing a lot of IED activity just north of our AO, out towards Al-Qut, and I don't remember the other names of the places. And then way out east in Baghdad. Baghdad had plenty of IED activity. Now, I wasn't connected in any more than you were to any other unit, but even I was getting some of that information via briefs and stuff like that, which was kind of where the argument against removing the doors from the Humvees came from, in that people are like, well, they're not bulletproof, like it doesn't matter. What's that going to help you? And I was like, well, look, there's other things that can hurt you. People throwing rocks, glass blowing up off of an IED. Like there's a million different things that are going to hurt you. Like just getting shot is not the only thing, but they're like, it makes us a more aggressive looking force facing outward. Nobody will think we're a target. And I was like, I don't know if that's true. But as early as November, there were plenty of reports across the Marine Corps of increased IED activity.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I just, from my experience, I just don't remember. We weren't worried about it, at least at first. We got the training, I remember that. And so looking back, I'm like, I don't know why I wasn't worried about it when we got this training.
Yeah.
But I think maybe to the point, maybe like you said, maybe we were seeing all these small things, soda cans and everything else. And maybe I had a false sense of security being in the vehicle from that. But yeah, no, I just remember I was just like, I'm like, I don't, when I talk to people, I'm like, I don't know if we were the first ones to hit IEDs, but, in the very beginning, we definitely were. Cause like, I just don't remember.
Well, and we saw such a heavy escalation, right? It started out with small rudimentary stuff that, like you guys said, buried too deep, buried backwards, all that stuff. Towards the end of the deployment, rolling V-bids that were being pushed by other vehicles. So we had a couple suicide bombers. It went 0 to 100 very fast.
Yeah, no. And you were talking about it before. I think we had maybe a week or two. I can't remember how long before things started kicking up. It wasn't long, before it was, I remember just enforcing the curfew, right? That was our first thing.
Yeah.
Like we're chasing bakers who were going to work at, 3 a.m. to make bread. Like, what are you doing? Like, going to work, it's just like, so, and then, obviously it escalating from there, but yeah, it was crazy.
Well, we kind of touched on April. Do you happen you talked a little about April 6th and 7th for sure. Do you remember anything of April 10th? And the only reason why I bring that up is because that was the first, I think, massive battalion mission, essentially. That was So 6th, 7th, big firefights, mostly independent units that were all separated across the city. April 8th ended up being mostly bullshit missions, something called Operation County Fair, where we found some sort of field hospitals and pre-staged caches. The 9th was the same, more of the same. Little nothings, not much. But 10th was the first big bug hunt. That was
Yep.
when we went to the Sophia district and surrounded it, and everybody who was possible was out there.
Yeah, I remember the biggest things I remember from that were I remember Major Harrell. I think that was our battalion XO's or OPSO's name.
That was the OPSO, yeah.
Yep. So he came over, and I was close to Captain Weiler at the time, but I remember him coming up on the hook and basically giving, giving a frag order to every company, giving them their left and right lateral limits, and that we were going to clear in zone basically, and do those bug hunts. And from the bug hunts, obviously we had more after that, but I just remember being
Yep.
long days, pushing through. One of them, I got a flat tire on. I don't know if it was that one. And we just drove on the run flat all day.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like me and vehicles during that time and afterwards, I had bad experiences with, but yeah, no. And I remember that's one of the big things I remember. Um, I remember taking some guys, I think it might have been on the 10th. I remember bringing some guys that had been killed. I can't remember if it was us or someone else, but we put them on the hood of our vehicle and took them to the police station. Or no, in the back of a high back, took them to the police station. And I just remember them being like, what do you want to? I'm like, I don't know what you're going to do with them, but we're not taking them. So, kind of just leaving them there with them. But those are a few things I remember. That might have been the time that we forgot that we didn't have our camelbacks and we got separated and had to go for a while.
Mm.
Um, so like I said, unfortunately for me, the dates and times, not great with.
No, you're probably spot on as far as that goes. It was a super long operation, all day, sun up to sundown type thing. Uh, the body stacking thing, that's a very vivid memory for me, only because I don't know how many. I bet you can't estimate either how many people your section or platoon shot, but dozens, maybe even in the hundreds. And we were at one point when you could find bodies, because often the local people would drag them off. We were stacking them on the hoods. We were putting them, a couple times we put them on the roof of the Humvee.
Mm-hmm.
We put them in. I didn't have a high back, so we would put them wherever they would stick. And you would take them to IP checkpoints. You would take them to the ICDC checkpoints or the hospital or the police station. We stopped doing that after April, but that was a big thing in April because I don't remember why we thought we needed to do that. Like it was a more humane thing to deliver them. I don't know. I don't know what the reason. I still don't know what the reasoning was behind that. But I remember doing that numerous times and seeing huge piles of bodies.
Yeah, I remember the same. It was just, yeah, very unusual. I thought the same thing, right? And then I was like, stacking them on your hood if you didn't have a high back with you,
Yeah,
it's like you're trying to see over these things. Kind of sounds insensitive, right?
very much so. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's like, well, I guess we could have left them in the field and let everybody else deal with them. But yeah, no, it was just very interesting, very weird. Um, yeah, it was just like it's so interesting.
I have a half memory of it's doing partially to deal with what's the word I'm looking for? Because we were looking for people specifically, and that we were supposed to, and I can't remember exactly what the phrasing was, but it was that we weren't. It was intel. It was for intel, I guess.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do remember taking a lot of pictures of a lot of dead bodies, so that does check out. So
Yeah,
that I believe it was something to do with that. That it was like it was for like an accountability piece that we were like our tally matched their tally type thing. That way, if the body was removed, that way somebody else didn't count it. Not that we were keeping score of the bodies, just to be exceptionally clear.
Right.
This wasn't to be very, very crystal clear. It wasn't that we were keeping tally, but it was to make sure that we weren't not making sure that wasn't someone that we were looking for.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I'm trying to think about what else from the bug hunts. Like I said, everything kind of meshes together, but
Yeah.
I thought it was cool afterwards, looking back on Major Harrell popping on the radio and giving a frago to everybody, every company, and kind of just sorting all that out and controlling that chaos. At the end of the day, not super hard for a major in the Marine Corps who's the operations officer, right? But very cool. And I was just like, going back after that, I was like, that was so cool, just seeing how he was able to, okay, because everybody was doing all this stuff. Hey, here's your points, here's your zones, go.
Did you ever get a chance to go over to the palace and go into where he did all the operations and had the maps with all the pins in them and his methods? Yeah, I don't know if everybody called him coach. That was what we called him. We called him coach.
Okay.
Just when we hear him, we're like, "Oh, coach is on the radio. I'm going to listen closely because he's going to pass some real information." Like it was a huge deal. Like I knew if Major Harrell was on the radio, like this is the real gouge, and we're going to learn all the things. And again, I don't know. This is just my sergeant's opinion of the time. I thought he was brilliant. I agree 1,000%. When he passed information and his plans came out exquisitely detailed and were always well thought out.
100%, totally agree. I think he was a battalion commander afterwards. If I remember correctly, I remember looking into it. I can't remember where, but obviously I wasn't surprised.
Yeah, I haven't kept up with him either, but I hear he moved on to bigger and better things. I know he stayed in.
Yeah, he did. I don't know if he made it to the general officer thing. Towards the end of my time, Captain Weiler's a general now. I don't know if you guys are tracking that.
Yeah, he is.
And I got to see him when he was the commandant's military secretary. So got to, see him as a colonel and Colonel Bronzy. So, a bunch of those guys that we interacted with, seeing them afterwards, it's, obviously old Paul Kennedy, 2-starring it up. I believe he might have been 3-star. I can't remember, and then Sergeant Major Booker, it's like, so it's,
yeah.
And I don't know if you know about, but Eric Cook, he's now the senior enlisted leader for Indo-PACOM. Like,
yep.
Nuts. Small
Dude,
Marine.
We've talked about this a few times on this podcast, but I imagine from your view, especially since you went the distance, did you go all the way to Sergeant Major?
I did.
Yeah. So you're one of another. I mean, I'm running out of fingers. The number of Sergeant Majors that came out of just weapons company alone is obscene, right? It's a lot of people. And it's interesting to me how many people went the distance.
Yeah, no, me and Hector Fernandez and David Dahl,
right?
Towards the end of my time, we felt like the Three Musketeers, like the last ones around.
Yeah.
Dahl's still in. He's a master of guns doing great things.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, me and Fernandez retired around the same time, I believe, and so he was a Sergeant Major too. So, it's cool. And it's cool seeing how, like how that group of people from that time, have done so well, because of, one thing I know now, because I was a Sergeant Major, Sergeant Major Booker and Colonel Kennedy, we were lucky to have them. They were lucky to have us. And the leaders that they had, it takes a group of amazing individuals to do what we did there. And I don't like, I think we all have humility in regards, and we can all say that we made mistakes, but we did something out of the ordinary, above average. I don't know what I want to call it, but it's like we were all able to coalesce and do things at a heavy price, 100%. I think we had 26 KIAs in the battalion, but
34.
34, geez. Well, way off. So
that's okay. It's been a lot of years.
It's been a lot of years. Wow. So, but just a lot of guys, and we experienced a lot. So very cool.
So coming into the end of April, that's when Regal and Hurley and Holmes all got hurt during that time frame.
I think I was talking
Um,
about Holmes.
Yeah, that would have been my guess, just based on your
yeah,
story. Yeah.
Yep. So Holmes,
yeah.
he's from the Midwest, right? Glasses.
Holmes,
Yeah.
uh, he's now
He lives in New
I think
Mexico
New
now,
Mexico, yeah,
but I think he
Albuquerque.
was, but I think he was from the Midwest originally. I
Oh
think that's
yeah, yeah,
accurate.
he's from Milwaukee. Actually,
Yeah.
now that yeah, he was
Yeah.
from Milwaukee. Yeah.
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 It was Holmes. Yeah. So sorry, Holmes. Love you, brother.
Yeah.
I remember his
um,
face like, like it was
but yeah,
yesterday.
and then that would have been the first part of May is when Savage was killed. So
Yes.
the 12th.
Yep. Remember that.
And at that point things had calmed down kind of just because the first part of April we really mopped the floor with everybody. But what's some of your memories of all during that I mean that was a rough 2 weeks for 81s in general, but specifically Rainmaker. You guys took a lot of casualties in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. It's just, you know, obviously Holmes, the other guy, like you know, they didn't hit and they don't stand in my mind. Obviously Holmes does because that was such a crazy experience for me. Um, and Regelsberger, like it was kind of weird because these guys get injured and they're gone,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't even think I saw Regal.
No, I mean he was pretty severely wounded. He was in the
Yeah.
hospital for months. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember. I remember him getting hit and I remember I didn't even get to see him hit. Like he's gone. Like, he got out. Uh awesome that he did. But I remember Savage, obviously. Me and Savage were pretty close. The godfather to two of his kids. Um, and so that was, the one that really sticks out. And obviously because, we lost him. And what I remember from that day is that I wasn't even there. So we split up that day. I took
Okay.
two, yeah, I took two, maybe three vehicles to Junction City to get up armored. So
Oh.
we were
Huh.
getting the windshields put in. Um,
No shit.
and yeah, so we were getting the windshields put in. And so I remember we did that. We came back if it was a little bit after they got back, but I just remember hearing that Savage got hit and he was flown out. And I was just like, I didn't know what to say or do. And I was just hoping for the best. And I remember when Gunny Cook came up, you know, very upset, sad, and just real quick, he's like, Savage is dead. He didn't make it. And I just remember, I think it was me, Felix Garcia, Reagan Hodges, sitting there just crying. Like, this sucks. And I was just thinking about Cassie, his wife, his kids, one that he hadn't even seen yet.
Right.
Um, and it was nuts. And I want to be careful with what I say here. So, uh, Savage was the most stubborn individual that you will ever meet, and I loved him for it.
Yep.
I basically had to beat that guy into submission sometimes with certain things that he liked to do because he didn't care. He was an animal, a war fighter. I don't know what you want to call him, and I don't just say that because obviously he was killed in action. A lot of people like to go back and say like, oh, he was the best dude ever. Da 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 da. Savage was awesome. He was a
Hmm.
pain to deal with sometimes because he'd just be like, well, why? And it's just like Savage, my brother, like the guy I went through ITB with. It's like we were super close. Me, him, Dahl, Bowers, right? Like all these guys. And I'm just like, he was just stubborn. And, he reminds me of the typical, just wild Tennessee redneck, awesome human being that just is all about, his country and us, his brothers. Like I said, I remember him just being stubborn, but, uh, I loved him very much. And that day was miserable. And I just remember, I think we went back out and had to do stuff the next day.
Yep.
And moving forward, when I would talk to my guys and gals just about what we were preparing for, in regards to combat, I'm like, 1 second, you could have the worst thing happen to you in your entire life. And then the next moment, you're going to be going out and handing candy to children, speaking with village elders, and doing that. And it's just one of those things where, I know a lot of people have dealt with a lot of things and, have a hard time after Ramadi, understandably so. Um, for me, I haven't had to deal with too much of that just because I always, and maybe because I'm a serial killer, I don't think so, but, but
Don't
I
worry,
just
you're in
thought
good company.
yeah, I just saw it as very professional. And like after Savage was taken from us, I felt like it would have been a dishonor for me to go out and do ridiculous things when I gave him so much pain and heartache about doing the right thing when we were there out there, and doing everything. And I
Hmm.
just took it as this is a profession. We get shot at, we shoot back. If we're not getting shot at, be friendly, be nice, no better friend, no worse enemy, the whole deal.
Yep.
But, and I didn't have a problem with that. It's just, but I remember that happening, being upset, crying, working through it, and then going out later that day. And I think that was the best thing for us. It's like, hey, we still got a mission here. And I've seen it go the other way after Ramadi, in Afghanistan and other places where, sometimes people just can't handle that,
Yeah.
and start doing stupid things. And it's just like, I always took it as that. And I've always, thought that in my mind. I don't feel bad about what we did over there. We made mistakes,
Sure.
but nothing crazy, at least for me. You guys were talking about it, Shane, you were talking about it before, maybe some things, maybe some people went, on the right side of gray, whatever side, wrong side of gray,
Yeah.
whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, but, and that's one thing I always was very cognizant of, because I think a lot of people come back from those experiences of lost people very close to them, gone through, seen things that no human being should probably see, and then you know, and then just be expected to operate normally. Um, but it's one of those things where I was very serious about that, and if I ever caught even an inkling of it, I would make sure I squashed it real quick because I think when people experience those things and then they go outside of the gray, that's when people have real issues afterwards.
Yeah. I think that's very true. And going forward, and you actually probably could speak to this better than me, but my understanding is further studies on how people deal with combat loss, they started to look at different units and how things went and the trajectory of some of the guys afterwards. And they kind of protocolized it where it was you give them 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, to experience loss, discuss it, get some feelings out, feel bad, have a minute, and then go right back on mission. Going back to work actually ended up being the better thing for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm in total agreement, right? Like something bad happens, dealing with that. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about Jeremiah. I don't think there's been one. I'm always thinking about him. He's always in my prayers, his family. I just saw his daughter, Madison, get married. I was there. It's just like, it's one of those things that'll always live with me. But, I think that just understanding and knowing that, yeah, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to deal with your emotions the way you need to. Um, there's not a lot of people that, sometimes people are like, well, if you get too emotional, you're being weak, you're not tough. And I'm like, well, maybe you just haven't been in a situation where you had to really call on or be tough, and that's what I would say to a lot of people. So, but, from those days, May 12th, obviously, is something that sticks out, with Jeremiah, um, for sure.
I don't want to twist the knife in any way, but I do want to ask because you're close to his family, how much do his kids know about him?
Quite a bit, but this is something that kind of bothered me, and this is on me too. I had a hard time talking to Cassie after that.
Yeah.
I know Dahl did too, from what Cassie told me. It was just very difficult because it's like, kind of feel like you let them down a little bit. Um, I don't beat myself up as much as maybe other people do in regards to that. It's like I did the best I could. Um, and it's unfortunate what happened to Jeremiah, but um, there's not a lot of people from 2-4 that have talked to the family.
I what we've I don't want to put words in Blake's mouth, but I imagine he feels the same. What we're learning more, I guess I didn't realize. I don't think any of us talked about anything for 20 years. And it's not. I don't. It may be for some people it's painful. I don't think there are good words to talk about the experiences easily with people that were not there. And so, what do you go up and say? What do you say to a widow? What do you say to a daughter who lost their father, right? Man, I don't know if I have those words. I can say sorry for your loss, but that's bullshit, right? That doesn't even begin to express what you actually feel.
Yeah, my thing was when I had all the kids with me at the wedding, and I was like, hey, it's supposed to be a happy day. All right. So I'm not going to,
Yeah,
but there's stories about your dad that you need to hear. And I want to tell you about them, and good, bad, and ugly. And there wasn't too much good, bad, and ugly. There was some drama, whatever. I'm not going to go down that road,
sure.
um, but I told him, I'm like, I did tell him, like, your father was a war fighter, and I'm like, and you should be proud of that. He was a guy that you wanted on your team, um, and I know that he loved all of you very much. And that's basically what I said. And I'm like, if there's ever a time after this where you want to talk about it, all the time in the world. But I felt horrible because, I think myself, just like you said, a lot of others, it's like we kind of just let it go. I was really looking forward to talking to you guys today because it's like, man, I haven't seen those guys in forever.
Yeah,
I know you
right.
guys are both doing great things now. I get a lot of updates from Hardin and other people on you guys, but, it's just one of those things where I was just like, you know what? If I could go back, I should have been a bigger part. But it was just, I didn't even see him in Arlington. I was stationed in DC for 3 years and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot. I agree with Shane. We've talked about it. Shane and I have been very close all the way since boot camp, and we stayed extremely close throughout the years and stuff like that. And so he and I have had probably more discussions about Ramadi than potentially the average um, guy, but only between the two of us. It was only until this podcast really started going that I really realized that, like, I haven't told any kind of real I mean, maybe a snippet, like a very
mhm.
quick story and stuff like that. But for the most part, I kept it in my pocket. It's not that I was ignoring it. It wasn't that I was trying to not talk about it, but it just always felt disingenuous. And the amount of, I don't know what word I want to use, the amount of like qualifying statements that I always felt necessary to tell any specific story, it ruined the run of what I was trying to do in the first place, because I was trying to tell a funny story, but it turned out to be too much gallows humor, or it turned out to be, whatever. And like,
All right.
I want to use all my acronyms and not have to explain each time, what is an ACOG, and um, I've, yeah. And so I think and I don't know if also is that this is 20 years on, we're one of the hardest things that I've recently been kind of dancing with since the podcast started is the idea that I was like, man, I wish we would have done this earlier, because I know a lot of people are getting a lot of benefit from this. Me in particular, just talking about it, but I don't think I could have handled it
Yeah.
earlier than 20 years. I mean, like this is the first time that I'm mentally, emotionally in this space to be able to have enough distance to be able to talk about it without feeling, I don't know what words I want to use at this point, but I think it's I guess my only slight point is with the last thing you said there was like try not to judge yourself too harshly on the younger Leighton. You
Yeah.
know that I know you have kids.
Agreed.
You can't as a parent you have the perspective of being like, man, you don't don't you have a lot of life to live, guys. Like don't beat yourself so much about it. Kind of giving yourself the same grace looking back at younger Lew, younger Shane, younger Blake of being able to like, man, you did a lot for giving a shit sandwich.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy now if you could see the transition and how they prepare people to go just be a motorized rifle company, right? Like we were Mortarman. Shane, I think you were 52, right?
I
Like,
was tow gunner. Yeah.
yeah, like, and it's like, hey, 0311, here you go. It's easy. You got 2 weeks, 3 weeks of this in ITB. Like, oh, yeah. The
Yeah.
only thing that saved me was squad leaders. Because, it was already bad enough. It would have been a lot worse leading leading my guys if I hadn't had that course for sure. But I agree with you, Blake. I think we're more mature now. The podcast, the talk would have been a lot different if we would have done it a couple years after, 5, maybe a decade. It would have been a lot different. And it's a lot different for you guys too. I was still surrounded by Marines each and every day. And so a lot of the stories got told as teaching moments, like we've already kind of discussed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those stories have been told. Not so in particular, about loss and things like that necessarily. But it's one of those things where we definitely had the conversations of hey, this, and I learned a ton. I mean, came back a lot better off than I went in when it comes to knowledge base and just knowing what and what not to do.
100%.
Well, I'm going to pull you out of your feels. We'll go back a little bit to the deployment.
Okay.
What do you remember from the summer, man? So here, I'll throw a few things at you. Moving out of May, the next big bug hunt was like June 1st. Mattis, as you talked about before, he was kind of running around in the June time frame. Let's see. Condi was hit.
Governor.
Condi was
Well,
hit
the
on
governor got it. That governor got
kidnapped.
kidnapped.
Yeah.
Police
Yep.
station. We had the left seat, right, or not the left seat, but the handover to the ICDC and the IPs, which was an absolute shit show. End of June. Anything
Yeah.
coming into the end of June, early?
I want to tell a funny story. I don't know when it is, but it's about Master Guns Monarchy. But
Yeah. No, that's good. Do it.
if you remember our battalion Master Guns, I'm not going to say his name. I don't want to do that, but
That's fine.
I'm pretty sure I remember it. But he called him the Black Hawk Pinata. I don't know if you guys remember this.
No, but that's awesome.
Oh gosh! All right,
Gunny had the best nicknames I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yep.
He had a knack for giving people nicknames. But go ahead, please tell the story.
I talk about him and I talk about First Sergeant Mac. I've told so many stories about those two, but anyway, and so, but he called him the Black Hawk Pinata. We were at the government center with Gunny Markey one day, and he saw Master Guns laying down, sleeping in the back of a Humvee, Black Hawked out. Like he had every piece of gear known to mankind. And I can't remember. I want to say this. Gunny Markey made this poster of him and said, "Wanted Black Hawk Pinata." He posted them all. I'm pretty sure it might not have been a picture. He might have drawn it. I can't remember, but I remember him. And I remember we were in the chow hall, and I can't remember how our chow hall morphed, but it was, if you guys remember, it wasn't huge.
No.
Right?
No.
Super tiny. So Master Guns was in there, and not Merarkey. Our Master Guns was in there eating, and Gunny Merarkey, like, I don't know if this was before or after, but he hated him. He didn't like a lot of people, right? So, but he was like, he's like, "Come outside, you mother, come outside." And he's like, "What, Gunny? What are you talking about?" He's like, get outside. And then Mac, old Alfonso Mac jumped in. He's like, "Gunny, you know, Gunny, come out. Hey, what do you do? You know, it's just like, and I just remember, but he didn't like him. He didn't like Sergeant Major Booker. I came out one day. I was going on a run. It was super early. I was just going to run around Hurricane Point, and I saw Gunny Merarkey and Sergeant Major Booker face to face, like going at it, just yelling at each other. And I remember First Sergeant Mac coming out and being like, Gunny, Gunny, come here.
Yeah.
It was so hilarious. But that dude was just, it's like, if you remember, other people were running out of ammo while we were there.
Yeah.
We never ran out of ammo.
Right.
And that was because Gunny Merarkey, he was a bad dude. In the good sense, I mean,
Absolutely.
he was amazing. And I remember, I'll tell you this story. I saw him when he was a Master Guns. Me, Kevin Sakaki, and I think Jimbo Harden went and saw him in his office. And so we go up, he's the battalion ops chief. We're talking with him, just shooting the breeze, just talking with him. He pops open his window, lights a cigarette, smoking inside the building. And I'm just like, I'm not surprised, but
Uh-huh.
it's just him. The battalion commander comes in while we're in there. He sees him smoking, and Master Guns Marky's like, what's going on, sir? Oh, and the battalion commander's like, oh, I didn't know you had company, Master Guns. When you get a chance, come on down, talk with me. He's like, yes, sir. Like, this dude, like, how can someone be more awesome than this man right here?
Yeah.
I remember there was a guy, I think it was like, if you guys remember the first contact I think we had, maybe not the first contact, but the whole company, we were driving down, what was it, Nova? And we took fire from the river, from the riverside. And I'm pretty sure it was right in the beginning, and it was all of us, I want to say. And so people were returning fire, and there was someone shooting over the hood. And I think I know who it was. I'm not going to say. So, but he's shooting over the hood, and Gunny Markey like kicked him. He's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And it was just like, it's like one of those funny stories. It's just like, and I got a million of that guy.
Oh yeah.
Last one, and then I'll move on and talk about something else. But remember Laylong?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
He hated
Yeah.
Lay Long.
I don't know why. I can't remember, but he called him Day Dong. He hated him. And he would come in the middle of the night, like 2 in the morning, and he'd be like, Day Dong. And Laylong would wake up like out of a dead sleep, like, yes, Gunny. And he's like, go clean my shitters. You guys remember we had those 3 porta johns, maybe 4,
Yeah.
2, I don't remember how many.
Yeah.
Laylong would be out there 2 in the morning with a hose and a scrub brush cleaning these porta johns. I remember him coming up to me one time and he's like, why does Gunny hate me so much? And I'm like, Day Dong. I was like, Laylong, I don't know, brother, but you just better, you better listen to what he says. I remember map 2, was that Anthony's?
Map 1 was Anthony. Map 2 was my
Okay,
platoon.
that was your platoon. That's right. Okay, so map 1 was Anthony's. If you remember, Gunny Markey'd be like, smoking pit right here, 5 minutes, because if you didn't smoke in the smoke pit and he caught you, he was going to kill you.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why he didn't like Laylong. I don't know, but I remember he sent someone in there to go get him out so that they could police call, right? And nobody's coming out. And he's like, he looks at me, he's like, Lew 3. Didn't I send someone in there like a couple minutes ago, say send a few guys out? And I was like, oh shit. And I'm like, yeah, Gunny, you did. And he goes in there and there's people naked, half dressed, just running out of that hooch after I was like, oh my God. It's like you did not want to be lit up by that guy. He was just I know him, and I think he probably got like 65 nip locks from Captain Weiler. Just stories I've heard and, now afterwards and after the fact. But yeah, he was such an awesome dude, such a great infantryman. And I learned a lot from him. He was great. So, but I remember that, just, some of those funny stories. Um, I can't remember who it was, but afterwards we were doing like another bug hunt. And this is another funny story, but I wasn't very happy at the time. So we had put some concertina wire across the road, and and we were set up there, and we were just holding security for everybody clearing to make their way up to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bowers is on the 240, and all of a sudden I just hear, and I'm like, Bowers, I'm like, what are you shooting at? He's like, someone popped their head out. I'm like, hey man, might not be a bad guy. I'm like, relax, but it's okay. Um, so no issues after that. But I remember going up to the top of this building, and I'm just trying to, just get observation, just trying to look around, see what's going on. And I see a guy run in the cordon,
Mm.
and I hear a shot. And it was Hersher shot a warning shot, right? He didn't want to shoot him because the guy had some mental issues. But, and I'm like, so I run down. I'm like, Hersher, what are you doing? He's like, oh, this guy he broke through, I think. And so they had him stopped. And so I'm walking up to where he stopped, and this guy is scared, and he takes off again. He gets away from him. Martinez, who is a saw gunner, one of my guys, big kid, uh, it starts running after him, and I'm like, catch him, Marty, and he's just like, I can't, Sergeant. He's hurt. And I got this saw, and I was like, oh, now I crack up about it. I was so pissed. I finally catch up to this guy, but um, and we believe that someone had, he was mentally challenged, and someone had told him like, hey, go over there, because we like this guy, like we were flexi cuffing him, and he thought he was going to die. I mean, he was so strong. And one of the Iraqi police came over, and he's like, I got him. He's like, kind of gives us the hand signal, take off the handcuffs, the flex cuffs. We take them off, and the guy just gets up and walks with them, and it's just like, that's one thing that sticks out of my mind, probably because, kind of some humor with that. But, um, you know, I do remember, I don't know if I know you guys weren't on it, but we went and picked up Echo Company's commander when he got relieved.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
I
Yep.
would love to hear that story, but I do remember you guys were there for that.
Sure.
I
So
forgot about that. Yeah.
we took Colonel Kennedy and Sergeant Major Booker over to the outpost, and
Yep.
they did an impromptu command climate survey. And they're like, and
No
whatever the
shit.
results were not good. We were there for a few hours. And so we go, and at the end of the day, I think Captain Smith was his name. Um, Maybe I shouldn't have said that name, but regardless, there's a lot of Captain Smith. So, but they relieved him. So we got in the back of, I think it was my Humvee, maybe Lieutenant Dobbs, I can't remember, but we took him back to Blue Diamond. Um, and I remember him walking up the steps, and it was Colonel Dumford, you know, now
Mm-hmm.
General Dumford, right, and
Yeah.
retired,
Oh yeah.
doing great things. Our regimental commander, I guess, at one point in the beginning, right? But um, yeah, he's there, and he's just kind of shaking his head, and I see Mattis come out, just look at him, like scowl, say something real quick, and then just walk down the steps and came over with us. We were, over at the chow hall. And, but I remember I was just like, oh man, this is not good. Um, but yeah, that was the experience. Yeah, not a good place for a captain to have the chief of staff of the
Yeah.
division and then the CG come down. And I don't know what ended up happening with him. I tried to look into it a little bit, but it was a dead end because I think
His name was not Captain Smith, but I'll send you his name offline
Yeah.
since it's not our
okay, good.
story to tell.
Right.
And I can give you some information on that. That is yeah. It was unfortunate, and it lasted a long time. There's a lot of investigations into that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, talking about that with Echo Company. Um, it was rough for them.
Yep.
It was rough for them. Um, and they had some guys in that company that just shouldn't have been squad leaders. And I'm just going to say that. And I'm not going to use names, but I remember we found one of the squad leaders in a pump house scared to death twice after his squad got ambushed. And a lot of people died. I want to say on one of the ambushes, like 5 or 6, in one fell swoop, and I don't think we were on both of them. I think we were on one. I can't remember. Things get super fuzzy, but I know we were on one. And I just remember that guy, he was a sergeant and he got selected for promotion on that deployment. And I just remember being super pissed. And I'm like, how does this happen? There's no way. Like this promotion system is flawed. And I remember talking to maybe Gunny Cook or somebody about it. I'm like, this is ridiculous. You need to do something. I'm like, this guy's not fit to lead. And I wasn't in the situation. Getting ambushed sucks. I get it. I get it. But like, listen, brother, pump house next to the river, way far away from the road where you got ambushed and your guys are dead? No. We had a sergeant that we wouldn't let go out of the wire.
Yes.
And that we sent to Echo Company.
Yep.
And then we went out and I saw him as a squad leader. And so I pulled over the platoon commander that was with him. And I'm like, that guy did not leave on good terms from Weapons Company. And he's like, he's doing all right. And I ended up working for that lieutenant when I was an instructor at Squad Leaders course. He was a captain in charge of the schoolhouse. But yeah, it's just like, one thing that I used to say after this whole experience that I learned from, and it's unfortunate with Echo Company, and they had some great guys, right? Like, so I don't want that to get misconstrued. And, I don't know, none of us know what was going on with Echo Company.
Not for sure.
Because we weren't there.
Yeah.
We got blessed. We had some pretty good leadership, I think. Great leadership. And so, but, it's just one of those things where, you can't expect a lot. Marines shouldn't, expect a lot. Like sometimes you're not going to eat. Sometimes you're not going to drink water for a while, and I don't think Marines deserve that. I think they need it, right? But like, you don't deserve a lot as a Marine. But one thing you do deserve is good leadership. And that's one thing that kind of from like our experiences in Ramadi that I kind of learned and I kind of adopted as time goes when I talk to people, especially sergeants. I would just be like, Marines deserve good leadership. I'm like, we're small, what we do and how we school our officers and now our NCOs and even back then our NCOs, a lot more mature back then than they are now. NCOs are still crushing it and they're a lot better in certain ways, but, it was very interesting as I moved on kind of seeing that, but, it's like back to Echo Company. It was just like, man, they got a rough go. And they had some good leaders. I mean, I liked Bernard Coleman, old Gunny Coleman.
Right.
Was their company gunny.
Right.
And I know a lot of people didn't like his style so much, but, if you've talked to Sakaki or some of those guys, they have some good stories about, yeah, he was rough and tough, but like at the end of the day, he was, I think he was a good leader. So it's just rough what they went through. And it really sucks.
Yeah.
Because one thing, we went and picked up that sniper that got shot on that rooftop.
Yeah.
So we were the ones that had to go up and pick them up and bring them down, and it's just like, God, you're just wondering, it's like, what's the deal? Like, what is going on with this? And I don't know what the results of those I know what the result was of the command climate survey. I don't know what the comments were,
Sure.
But it was just bad all around. So, but yeah, that was a story on, like I said, I wish I would have known what Mattis said to him, but
yeah, no kidding. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall to hear that one.
Yeah.
Well, as a quick aside, and I don't know, Shane, I don't even know if I sent this to you before or not, but in 2017, I wrote this note to myself just as a weird point of history for ourselves. 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, Ramadi 2004. We served under Mattis as division commander, now Secretary of Defense. Mattis's assistant division commander was John Kelly, who now is Chump's chief of staff. Mattis's chief of staff was Joe Dunford, now chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Yeah.
So at one point, and just kind of as a larger storyline of how absolutely insane Ramadi 2004 was, of how people that were kicking around over there, so many people went the distance. Like we're at the top end of stuff.
Yeah. No, 100%. I'm trying to think, of who else. Obviously we have guys from our own company. They're at the top of their game. I mean,
Right.
doing great things. I double tapped. I can't remember where old General Weiler is now, but
he's
in Europe.
attached. He's attached to the European Command.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just crazy on, how much great things and how many great things have come from that unit and just everybody around us.
Well, let's see. I'll drag you back to the deployment just for a second. You did talk about you participated in the handoff with 2-5, and that was a eventful handoff to say the least.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a couple of memories, just specifically that 7-ton taking a wrong turn and you having to remind him, hey, follow the convoy.
Yeah.
Probably less nice language. Anything else stand out from the handoff other than just the difference in leadership and that their leadership seemed to not want to listen to our advice?
I will tell you that yes, right? But now, after doing that, for 23 years, it's pretty common, right? And this is how I observed it, and this is how I've seen others.
Sure.
They came in with all this great training and all these things they did, right? And I think at that point I had understood that like that training is great. I'm not going to say that it's not, but you're going to get a lot from our experiences and us telling our experiences and us showing you around than any of that. I remember at one point we were they were going to go out the next morning and we were like, okay, hey, just wake us up and we'll go with you. And they left us. And the reason they left us is because they were tired of us trying to give them information. Right. And we weren't being jerks. Yeah, I wasn't very nice to the 3 people in the 7-ton that one night because I was like, this is horrible. Like, you guys, at the end of the day, I should have just been up there. I'm like, did you see the convoy take the second exit, not the first exit on the roundabout? The answer is probably no, because that's why they went the way they did.
Right.
Right. But, I was just like, I was basically just telling them they're idiots. They already knew that. Right. So, 20 years later, it's like they already knew that. But
it's that maturity thing that we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. Right. It's just because we've had more experience now and we know that, hey, bad things happen. It's not a big deal. Like, I didn't have that maturity at that point. But I remember them leaving us and I was like, and I kind of knew why. And I was just like, hey, guys, like, you can do whatever you want. You're taking over. But what we have to give you is important. Right. And they wanted to do their own way, their own thing. And I get it. And I get it. Right. Because every unit's kind of like that. I want to say that I never was. I just observed. And I would take everything I could from who I replaced, no matter which deployment it was.
Yeah.
And I've seen people replace us and like, yeah. And, especially Afghanistan, the guys that replaced us there, I was just like, I remember talking to the guy and I was just like, listen, I'm trying to tell you, like, there's nothing you could have gone through that prepared for you interacting with these people here. I've been doing it for 7 months. I'm like, I'm telling you, because it was just, and I think that's kind of what I gained from that. Now looking back, it's just like every unit sometimes is kind of like that. And we expect Marines to kind of have a chip on their shoulder, be confident in themselves, 100%. I'm not saying that we weren't. We didn't have a chance, in my experience, I didn't have a chance to tell the Army to, screw off. I don't need you. So I think I only got the one chance, but, and to what you guys said, they had a different mission. We were, hunting for IEDs. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was just,
Yeah. They
um,
they were just trying to keep the lights on long enough for us to get there. I mean, that is very different. Yeah.
yeah, no, 100%. Right. And like I said, and I've worked with the Army plenty of times after that, and, all good experiences. But, um, it's just, that was my biggest thing taken from them is like, they kind of just dismissed us at one point because they were tired of being told that, and it wasn't like, and we, like I said, I don't remember being a jerk about it. And I don't think I would have been. I would have been like, hey, probably should do this. Hey, this is this. And I think you're just getting tired of us kind of telling them, like, what are you doing? Like, no, don't do that. There would be certain things that would happen. I'm trying to remember, specific example. I can't, but like, no, you should not do that. Like, that is a bad idea. And then I think we voiced our concerns. Can't remember who it was. We're like, I think we asked to stay. Me and Garcia asked to stay. Like, these guys need help. And I think it was Gunny Cook. He's like, absolutely not. He's like, you're coming back, bud. He's like, sorry, guys. Like, no. And I'm like, and then I remember leaving that day in the back of a 7-ton, I want to say,
Yep.
when we were, but the last ones to leave Hurricane Point and just seeing the snake pit in it to win it. Like, World War III, like shooting small rockets at the cyclic. I ended up talking to a guy that was over there after, and they shot like 80 something smalls, I believe.
I don't know how many that guy shot, but he shot all of them. That's the answer. He shot every small rocket he had in the tower.
Yeah.
And
So,
every machine gun, every bit of machine gun ammo, and switched to his M16.
and I understood that they lost checkpoint 295 for a time there.
Wasn't long, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I talked to a CB who was in Ramadi after that, when they had split the city up.
Mhm.
3 different units. It's just, yeah, crazy.
They held it with one.
That's right. It's like we caught them in their infancy, just like we were talking about, right? We were all kind of new. But yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We'll put up.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was going to say we've gotten ourselves over to Junction City, eventually Camp Ramadi there. But before we go completely off of that part of it, do you have any hooch stories like back in the like your downtime? Some of the I know there's a lot of we were up to a lot of antics at that point, and so wasn't sure if you had any particularly good ones from that time.
Well, having Hersher and Hodges around was always a good time. They always made things fun. um, I don't think, I can't think of anything very specific. I just remember a lot of First Art Mac stuff, and I'll tell a couple.
Yeah, please
because I
do.
love the man. I remember having to wake him up one time. We went to the outpost, and I don't know if you guys were there, but we were doing a big operation, maybe one of the bug hunts, and we stopped that night there to just get a few hours of sleep before we went out at the crack.
Yeah.
I
0
remember
dark
doing
30.
a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I remember Captain Weiler, I believe it was him saying, "Hey, Layton, go wake up First Heart," and I'm like, and I'd heard stories about waking him up, and I'm like, I don't know. And I remember like going to his boot and kind of like just shaking it, like First Heart, First Heart. And I'm like, man, I don't want to get close to this guy's paws. For everybody that doesn't know, First Art Mac, how I explain him is one of the biggest people. He looks like the dude from the Green Mile, is what I tell people.
Yeah.
And just an awesome human being. I think the only time I heard him cuss was at Hersher. And that was after the deployment. No, I think it might have been during the deployment. I can't remember, but that's the only time I've ever heard him. But I remember just going up, and finally I made my way up to his shoulder, and I'm like, I shake him pretty hard, and he kind of got up, and he's just like, he doesn't have his glasses on. He's like, oh, he looked like, King Kong awakening from sleep. I barely made it out of his reach because he swung at me. And he looks at me, and he's like, kind of like, waking up, and he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, First sergeant, it's time to go. He's like, oh, okay, and he gets up. Another one, obviously, all the times that he was trying to pull Gunny Merarkey back off whoever it was that Gunny Merarkey was getting into it with, was always hilarious. And then, but I remember one day we got in a firefight the day before. First sergeant was with us. I think it was when Lioness was with us. We got, it was just kind of like all day long, whatever. But I remember the next day we were out in the same area. And I remember First Sergeant Matt going, and he carried that shotgun. I don't know if you guys remember.
Oh yeah,
shotgun. And he's like, oh, that's where I got shot at yesterday. Right over there. Right there. And I just remember laughing just because how he talked, just that. I think he was from South Carolina, but just that Southern, he was so funny. And I remember just, the way like he'd be like, oh, Sergeant Layton, just the way he laughed. And yeah, he made things great and fun. And, I think he did just an amazing job of taking care of all of us, one. But just him and just the way he was just, he brought a lot of relief and morale to everything that he did. So it was awesome. Some of the other antics, I know Gunny Cook didn't like it too much. When I took Aponte's rack, I duct taped it together and we were trying to make a person on top of the hooch. We didn't get complete with it because Gunny Cook came by and he was pretty pissed and he's like, get that down, So, but, we pulled it down. I remember Sergeant Major Estrada came and saw us. Do you guys remember that?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps.
I remember this. So I remember we had the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, but I don't think I was even on the base at the time. And
you might have been out, yeah.
And the Commandant came at some point too.
I think they were together. So they were together, but I remember Estrada came into our hooch. Oh, and I was just coming out of the shower and I was like, oh gosh. Like, like people are all buck naked. I'm basically half naked, talking and like shake his hand. It's like, what's going on? He gets in this conversation with me. I'm like, it'd be nice if I could get dressed, Sergeant, so I can talk to you here. It's like, I remember the tops of those hooches. Remember when they were just tents?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And they were blowing off, and you're just like, oh gosh. Another funny thing is, I think after a while we got kind of immune to rocket mortar fire on the fob.
100%.
And we're just like, you hear it coming in, and we're just roll over in your rack, go back to sleep. You're like, whatever.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, really, there was a ton of antics. I remember when Rocha really pissed off Lachard. I don't think, Musser, you might know this, but Shane, I don't know if you probably never heard of it, but I thought it was something that pops in my mind. Lachard was pretty belt fed, and I think he was talking with Rocha, and
always
Rocha wasn't calling him sergeant. And Rocha was a lance corporal, and he's like, it's sergeant. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, no, it's sergeant, and they just went back and forth. And it's funny. Finally, I'm like, Rocha, shut up. I'm like, you're not going to win this, dude. But, Rocha was a funny dude anyway. I already told you about the time with Aponte and Hodges. Yeah, I mean, besides that, some stuff I don't want to say on the and talk about.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Just like as we said, everybody's 20 years older now, and I don't want their families to hear about all the crazy stuff they did. But yeah, I mean, my main remembrances are just we just had good times. Like I said, the worst of times too. Yeah, for sure. 100%. Like, people dying and everything else. But when you join the Marine Corps, I don't know what you expect. If you expected to come in, get your college money and go, well, you might have a rude awakening, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of us, I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I feel blessed. I joined the Marine Corps for something. And I think part of that something was to do my job, and we got to do it.
Right.
And, and I'm grateful for that because there's guys now that are coming in the Marine Corps and they'll never see combat. The Marine Corps has a real hard time sustaining and maintaining staff NCOs in the infantry. I mean, before I left, it was real bad. Um, I talked to the monitor. I was trying to get a platoon sergeant, a staff sergeant, and he's like, "Brother, I got 600 billets not filled right now because I'm
Holy
600
shit.
staff sergeants short."
Holy shit.
Yeah. And the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps came and talked to all of them. And they're like, "What's the deal?" And they're like, "No more war. Why stay in?" Where it was very different when we first came in, different mindset.
Well, I mean, let's see. If you joined the unit in November, it was peacetime when you enlisted.
Yeah, it was.
There was no 9/11, and that's I mean, now that it's been 25 years, people can't even imagine probably what that feels like. That it was peacetime Marine Corps, painting curbs and cutting the grass, and picking up cigarette butts was your challenge for the day. Cleaning your weapon 23 times a week,
Yeah.
right? Like it changed so rapidly, so fast.
Yeah. Great point. No, absolutely. Right. And but that's what I was seeing was staff NCOs getting out.
Right. Well, it's boring to be the guy who's just telling people to police call all day long. I can
Yeah.
I can definitely see that if you're not training, not
Yeah.
training to do something.
100%. Yeah. We were a bit different for sure.
Well, to wrap a bow up on it a little bit, since we've covered a lot of things,
Yeah.
and you've talked about it in little snippets overall, but I'm just curious. You look back on all this particular deployment is the point of the podcast, but I guess you have a long career, so it may be hard to divorce. What does all this stuff mean to you? What do you tell people?
What comes to mind when people thank you for your service, right? Um, I get kind of weirded out by that. We all joined. I think a lot of us understood what it meant by joining. And what I take from it is, I think Ramadi, I mean, it formed the foundation for my career. I will say that. Um, I learned a lot, but what it means to me is it just makes me think about how awesome it is that we live in a country where we have people who will raise their right hand to do the kind of things that we did when we were in Ramadi. And I used to tell my guys, it's like, I'm not going to thank you for your service. You signed up, you're volunteers. I appreciate your service. That's what I will tell you. Right. Because I'm not going to thank you. Like, thank you for giving you a job and everything else. Yeah, it's a tough job. I don't want to discredit that. But you signed up for this. Why? Because you wanted something. You wanted to live an abnormal life. You wanted to be better than everyone else. That's most Marines. Why did you join the Marine Corps? Because I heard it was the baddest. That's why. I didn't know.
Right.
I don't know. There's other units and other services that could have been better than us, but we didn't believe it. Right. And that's good. Right. That's awesome. And as I moved forward, I had squad leaders that were a pain. When we were in Ramadi, I had team leaders that were a pain sometimes. Right. I had Marines that were a pain. And I appreciate it. Right. Because it takes those kind of people to make the country that we live in today. And I think we have an amazing country. We've all been many places, some have not. I've been all over the world now, and it's just like there's no other country I'd rather be. And what I take from all of it is just like I'm happy and at peace that I know that there's people out there who will do the hard things to keep us safe, and I just hope that we never lose that. And I will tell you, at least 2 years ago, there's still amazing men and women. You got some ladies in the infantry battalions now, and they do great things. I'm just going to be real. They made the standard. They meet the standard. That's enough I'll say about that. Obviously it does bring some issue with certain things, but it's like, but we're in good hands. The Marine Corps is still doing great things. I have a lot of guys like yourself that have been removed for a long time, and maybe not you guys, but the other ones are like, oh, everything's woke now in the Marine Corps. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. He's like, like, remember when we were in? Yeah, well, now I'm the sergeant major, man. Like, no, it's not woke. It's the same thing, just a different flavor. We're still in the ice cream shop. It's just a little different. Like, so it's just like, when I hear people say that, it's like, oh, well, you have to get this. No, we don't. I have done zero of that training, right? Like, Marines will still be Marines, and they're still doing great things. And, the squad leaders I had in 3-6 are a lot smarter than the squad leader that I was in 2-4. I'll tell that. So,
nice, man.
it's like things have gotten better, but it's one of those things. And that's what I take from all of that is the best of times, the worst of times. I learned a lot. It built the foundation for my career and my life, in essence, right? It's where we were truly tested. Could have been better, could have been worse, right? But like, we were tested. And I got to see, just and be around and interspersed with some amazing people. Condi. I knew Condi before we went to squad leaders course together. I remember him running flat footed, and I used to make fun of him because because in boots, it was just so funny. But, we had that guy that got shot. I don't remember. He wasn't in our platoons. He was in one of the maps, might've been in Shane's platoon, but got shot in the side and made his way back to Ramadi.
That was, Lance Corporal Cummins shot right through the lung.
Yeah.
Came back 2 weeks later.
It's just like, that's the kind of people I want to be around. And that's the one thing I miss about the Marine Corps the most. I'm not going to speak for you guys, but I am damn sure that you miss the same thing. Is just you're around some awesome human beings and some people that you really enjoy. And 100%. Now being out, I get to work with the Air Force, so it's still cool, right? It's not the Marine Corps, that's for sure. But, I still get a piece of that. It's still people that have decided to serve their country, and they're a really great group of people. But, it's just one of those things where that's the thing I miss the most. That's the thing that, I take from it all, and just remember all the amazing people and the amazing opportunities that we had, even though, just like with anything else, you get bad with the good.
That's good, man. That's a great way to wrap it up.
If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe for future episodes on your favorite podcast service.